So I mean, gosh, superheroes, there's so many of them, and I want to be a sponge with everybody that comes across my path of life because I know I can learn something from most everybody.
Detailer's Roadmap Cruise Control, where we navigate the roadways of life, business, and everything in between. Hey guys, it's Kevin Davis from the Cruise Control Podcast. Today I'm going to be here with one of my favorite people, Tony Pando from Dr. ColorChip. I'm super excited to have him here. We have had hundreds of conversations over the years, and I know this one will be just as good, if not better. So a little heads up on that. We will define, life, business, and everything in between during this conversation. I'm really excited about it. So hey, before I get started, don't forget to go to detailersroadmap.com and check out what we've got going on there. We do websites and SEO. You can use that little demo button there at the top. We will be at MTE, as you can see behind Tony. If you're watching this on video, he's got his big MTE sign, which crazily enough, he's in his bedroom. I was really surprised to see the MTE sign back there, but hey, go to detailersroadmap.com, use that demo button, and we'll walk you through your website and what we can do for you. Let me give Tony's Instagram/LinkedIn bio, and then I'll have him fill in the gaps. Hailing from Northern California for the past 32 years. Hailing from Northern California, for the past 32 and a half years, he's been in business of building teams, brands, and companies in South Florida. It sounded like you were in Northern California for the last 32 years.
Yes.
The first 20 plus years were spent with Jack Nicklaus growing the Golden Bears golf equipment and apparel brands around the world. Tony developed teams and business partners worldwide who have sold these products at the largest golf retailers in the US, South Africa, UK, and Asia. After learning the best way to develop products, packaging, sales teams, and sales outlets, Tony left Jack and has been with Dan McCool, the founder of Dr. ColorChip, for 13 years. Dr. ColorChip is now a worldwide brand with distribution in 11 plus countries and has a myriad of corporate partners and affiliates worldwide. Tony's a car collector, author, philanthropist, sports enthusiast, and lives in Palm Beach Gardens with his family. I have that business card you gave me at one of our trade shows, and I was going to list all those things on there, but some of those are not for public consumption, so we'll leave that out. But dude, I'm so excited to have you on here, and I appreciate you taking the time. You are one of the guys that I always look forward to seeing. You make trade shows even better than they already are whenever we see each other, and we always have some great conversations. So I'm excited about this, and I appreciate you coming.
Yeah, no, well, thank you, Kevin. Thank you for Detailers Roadmap. Thank you to everybody or anybody who's listening and watching. I'm very grateful to be here, and very grateful because exactly what you said. You and I have had many conversations. I love when you talk about business life and everything in between, because that's what encompasses my existence, right? And so it's super cool. But I know we've had great business conversations, but then we've also had great life conversations. I think we were just down in Miami a few weeks ago, and I had another great chat there with our friends down in Miami. So it's great to actually do the podcast. I know that I screwed up at Mobile Tech. I think it was last year or the year before, and was supposed to have one with you, and I screwed up.
You were busy there. Someone of your stature has so many demands on his time. I know that it's very difficult to get away in these trade shows because you are the man. But no, that's totally fine. I appreciate you coming on board. I like this format too. We'll do some more podcasting at MTE. But I like this format a little bit better, quite frankly. It's a little bit easier to hear and listen. One of the big things that I do on this podcast, and if this will be no surprise to anybody listening, but we ask for this superhero backstory, right? Like, I read your bio, that kind of gives the highlights, but I like to give people context because I think we're a little bit older, we're of the older generation, and so we have this life experience, and I like to give people this backstory so that people can understand kind of who they're listening to, what the background that we have is, kind of how we got here, and then tie that all together with the conversation. So let her rip.
Sure. Superhero backstory. Oh gosh. There's a lot of ways to answer that. the first word that comes to my mind is mentors. Who are my mentors, or who are the people that taught me? Who are the people that I learned from? The list of my mentors is very long. And if I can say one thing to anybody listening, having great mentors is the best thing. And if we're lucky enough, we have mentors who are superheroes. And it doesn't matter how old they are, doesn't matter how rich or poor they are. It just matters kind of who they are and what their story is, and how they can help you, and how willing they are to help you and teach you and guide you and show you the ways of life, whether it's business or personal. So, I mean, superheroes, my gosh, I've had a lot of them in my life that have taught me, ranging from Jack Nicklaus, who's, I don't know if you know who he is. We are older, but he was a pretty influential golfer guy, and the people that I surrounded with there, just by being in his presence. You're talking Nathaniel Crosby, being Crosby's son, and a whole slew of other really high end folks that were really smart people. And then, superheroes, Dan McCool, he's a superhero in the sense of what he has done. When he took a company, I call it the Hewlett Packard philosophy, or Amazon philosophy, of taking something and starting it in his garage. And now here we are, around the world. And so, he's been a mentor of mine. And then so many other people. When you were talking, it made me write something down. Obviously we do a little bit of business with a couple of Elon Musk's companies, and whether you love him or hate him, he's pretty amazing fellow. And, what he said was, when he hires people, he can, how do I say it? Bottom line is, he doesn't care what you say. He cares what you've done. And when he asks you questions, the questions he asks you will determine, he'll know very quickly how involved you were. So in other words, if you're top level and you just have a couple of ideas of something, or were you somebody that rolled up your sleeves, got in there and actually made things happen? And those are the kind of people that he hires and has hired and brought on his teams. And so I think it's really important to be a person who doesn't talk about things, doesn't sit on the chair and talk about what they're going to do. It's a person who gets off the chair, and it's not, tell me what you're going to do. It's not that. It's show me what you've done. And so the mentors that I've learned in my life, the superheroes, if you will, are people that have motivated me to get out of the chair and go do things and show them what I have done or what I can do. And, the culmination of that, as old as we are, the culmination of that has been all of these little pieces of the puzzle of these people, these superheroes, these mentors, have helped to shape and mold me in so many different ways. And I, too, am just a spoke in the wheel, because quite frankly, people like you here in my life, and I've been in this industry now for 13 years, so quite a while, but people like you are a mentor to me, and hopefully I can reciprocate and be a mentor to you and a superhero
100%.
to you. And, you said very nice things, when we got on this podcast, but in reality, and, the feeling is very mutual. And, that's why we both take the time to do this. So, having mentors, having superheroes, I think is amazing. I have a little old lady. She's 78 years old. I take her to the gym every morning. We dog walk, and she taught me like one of the best things in life. She said, life is a teeter-totter, and you just don't want your teeter to totter too much.
I like that.
Something as simple as that, I mean, we've been walking for 15 years and going to the gym, and Mrs. Miller is her name. And oh my gosh, she's like one of my superheroes, right? And whether it's and to your point, the teeter-totter is work, family, work, girlfriend, work, boyfriend, whatever, his wife, husband, whatever. And my work might be doing great right now, but my relationship with my girlfriend might not be so good, or vice versa. Don't let the teeter totter so much. Have balance, right? And So I mean, gosh, superheroes. There's so many of them, and I want to be a sponge with everybody that comes across my path of life because I know I can learn something from most everybody.
That I really like that. And I was telling somebody the other day that every successful person I know has a coach and a mentor. And like, or multiple ones, it's so that's super important to have in your life and to be able to lean into those people. And then in turn, take what they teach you and impart that into other people in your life, and reciprocating, genuine connection relationships, I think is super important. I was struck when you did, we were down at the detailing summit in Miami a few weeks ago, that you mentioned, you talked a little bit about Dr. ColorChip, but a lot about life. And I always like that because I have to remind myself that we're here to talk about products and stuff too. So, but I think that,
Well,
I think that is a great way to do it. I was thinking this morning about this podcast, and I was thinking about, your time with Jack Nicklaus. And if you don't know who Jack Nicklaus is, that's fine. If you know who Tiger Woods is, Jack Nicklaus is the guy that Tiger Woods looked up to and still do, and like that's kind of was a big thing for him to look up. He was the man, in golf for quite some time, and it still has a huge influence. But um I was
yeah,
thinking this morning
yeah,
that golf and detailing and what we do in this industry are really in parallel, because no one needs an $1,800 pair. Very few people need an $1,800 set of golf clubs.
right.
If you're shooting 90 and trying to break 90, that ain't going to help you, right? And so, like, it's a luxury item, and it's the entire sport of golf is a luxury kind of, product and service. And so I was
Mm-hmm.
kind of contrasting that a little bit with detailing, and it seemed like it was a great transition for you. I'd be interested to know your thoughts around that, and just your time doing those things in golf, and how that developed, you as an individual, and from a business standpoint, kind of your philosophy on all of that.
Right. Well, no, thanks. Sure. So first and foremost, my history with Jack was when I was 21, 22 years old, I had the opportunity to help start a company that Jack was starting. It was called Nicholas Golf Equipment. I was like employee number 3 or 4. And I started the customer service department with the company. And then long story short, I evolved to the customer service manager, national sales manager, vice president of sales, and then at the end became the Nicholas vice president of international brand management, which was a lot of things that had the golden bear on them, whether it was apparel. I helped design the Nicholas golf ball, um, you know, golf bags, all that type of stuff. So I did a lot of that for over 20 years with Jack. So, in terms of the nuts and bolts, I was there in the beginning as a kid when we had a fresh slate. And I wrote the 80-page customer service manual, with a couple of our teammates. And so, I mean, was really rolling up my sleeves from day one. And we built that company up to, it was $35 million dollars at the height of it. And it was a lot of fun, and Jack owned it. But you bring up 2 other things in that uh, I think are really important, and it can relate to detailing as well, which is, the $1,800 set of golf clubs, right? The first thing when you said that, it's so true, is it's the Indian, not the arrow, right?
Mm.
And so people, I had sales force of 6 regional managers, 18 independent reps, blah, blah, blah. The point is we would do demo days. If you have a golf demo day and you can go try out all the stuff and you hit this $500 driver, well, and you happen to hit it twice really good, you're like, oh my God, I got to buy this. This is my world's complete. And you buy this $500 driver and you think the driver is going to change your game, and it's not. What's going to change your game is the Indian, not the arrow. Okay. Not the golf club. It's you going to the driving range, practicing all the time, working hard, showing up. And so, whatever detail product it is, it's not just, hey, what's the most expensive and will this just solve all my problems? No.
Now, you already know that Detailer's Roadmap builds kick-ass websites and does kick-ass SEO, right? We have so many cool new features coming out very, very soon, and we would love to show them to you at MTE. Mobile Tech Expo is going to be in a couple weeks as we are recording and as we launch this. So if you're going to be there, make sure you come by the booth. You can not only see some of the demos of our new features, but you can also meet your account manager, put that name to a face and voice to a face, and be able to kind of see who you're dealing with at Detailer's Roadmap. So don't forget, if you're going to Mobile Tech Expo, come by the booth. We probably have some giveaways along the way as well. So we hope to see you there.
What's going to solve my problems is me rolling up my sleeves and learning how to do things, the intricacies of them, the tips and the tricks and the, do practice, right? And so in golf, I used to kind of joke because, somebody would buy a $500 driver thinking that it's going to, change their life. And it's not. What's going to change my life is my hard work, showing up, doing the best that I can consistently, right? And then another thing in the golf world that I realized is etiquette, is the class of etiquette. And what I mean by that is, if anybody's a golfer, been a golfer, the one thing I'll just to say on it is, if you ever hit a ball and you land it on the green, it makes a little divot, right? And you're like, oh, cool, yeah, I landed it on the green, and you go up. Well, what you do is you repair your divot and someone else's divot.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So always repair your divot, but repair somebody else's divot too. And what I mean by that is being consciously aware of my stuff, but also how could I do better with other stuff? That's how I equate it. And golf, has so many wonderful etiquettes, and that one has always stuck with me. I mean, when I walk my dogs, which I do every morning and every night with the Millers or whoever, I see plastic on the ground. How many people see plastic on the ground, right? I consciously go pick it up, and I'm almost obsessed with it, but it's because of what I learned in golf, which is picking, just being aware of, where I live and how I want to live and the environment around me. So being consciously aware, take care of my stuff, always take care of myself, but try to do good in other areas as well. So, golf taught me a lot of things, and I mean, hey, it was fun. There's nothing like, I don't try to talk about this kind of stuff too much, but there's nothing like getting on Jack's Gulfstream G5, flying to Augusta, landing in Augusta with Jack in Augusta, and they always save parking spot 1 for Jack, right? And so there's 150 private jets there, and you come walking off of his plane at Augusta National, and it's a pretty surreal experience. And I've done that, and it's fun. I was pretty close with Jack and Barbara. They were really, really good to me for many years.
That's awesome. Yeah, I can imagine that would be a pretty cool experience. And that's, we've talked about the experiences in the past, but I like your golf is interesting because golf is one of those things that etiquette and manners and how you behave is kind of innate, right? Like you get taught that, like you don't talk during someone's backswing, and you don't hit into the group in front of you, even though they're being super slow. You don't step on people's ball, all of that different thing. But it is kind of this microcosm of what society could be. Like if we really were, because you ultimately have to be very conscious about other people in the world. And I think in general, we are no longer conscious that even other people exist. And so I think that's a great example of what you're talking about.
100%. And, I think, like, not to pivot too far away, but, when I talk with you and I learn from you, you always make me consciously think about things. And, I was on dog walk this morning with Mr. Miller, Mrs. Miller's husband. And I was telling him that we were going to do this. And he says, oh, you're going to go sell your products? And well, no. I mean, our paint is great. It works awesome. It's unique and different. No, that's not what it is. I mean, what we're doing is a part of it. It's building trust. It's building knowledge. It's making me a better person. It's making hopefully other people better people. And, I thought of us, and the word that came to my mind, and I wrote it down, is fear. fear, FEAR. Because in thinking about how we talk and about what life is, false evidence appearing real. And whether it's a golf game and you hit your ball and shoot, or whether you have fear of what life is, or you have fear of spending money to buy a good product, or fear of spending money to invest in myself or yourself. I really thought about that this morning, because I was like, gosh, what can I talk about with Kevin that is in the business life and everything in between? And it popped in my mind, fear. And how do we approach fear? I could run and hide. If I ran and hid, I never would have had the opportunity with Jack Nicklaus. I never would have learned if I ran and hid and I didn't get on the golf course and play golf with some of the better golfers of the world. I wouldn't have learned the etiquettes and the tips and tricks of it. If I had fear, I wouldn't be on this podcast right now. And so, I mean, it's all so intertwined, and I just I can't emphasize that enough. And overcoming fear and realizing, life is short. Life is like a roll of toilet paper. The closer it gets to the end, the faster it goes. And you and I are a little bit more than, I don't know how far along, but realizing that fear, there's nothing to it. I cannot lose if my motives are right, if I'm honest, open-minded, and willing, and if I try hard every day and I try to be a good, true, real person, there's no reason to have any fear in this world. And if I'm consciously aware of that other divot, if I'm consciously aware of, yes, not talking when somebody else is swinging, things can really work out okay. And that's the kind of stuff I love talking with you about, because if somebody's listening right now, they're going to be like, okay, what's this have to do with my detailing? In my opinion, it has to do a lot with it, because the type of person that I am, if I'm proactive, if I'm aware, and if I'm making things happen in my life, I'm going to be a success in business, because I can guarantee you this: before I came to Dr. ColorChip, I never knew a thing about paint. I didn't know a thing about detailing. I would take my car to the car wash, when I started in golf, I mean, not to get into a whole thing, when I was interviewing at 21 years old with Jack, they flew me in from California for the interview. I didn't even really know how to golf. And I ended up the national sales manager. His name was Dave Bogey. Go figure, right? The guy that was going to start.
That's a terrible name for a golfer.
And he became my boss for 15 years. But anyways, he knew that they were having the PGA Tour qualifying school. They have it down here in Palm Beach at one of the locations. And I had to go play golf with Dave Bogey, who was a golf head professional kind of guy. Two guys qualifying for the PGA Tour. And I sucked at golf. I was horrible. And long story short, after many years, Dave, I got the job and everything and helped start the company and blah, blah, blah. And Dave told me many years later, he says, the one reason that we brought you on board was because we knew that you're a terrible golfer. We knew that you were going to be put with guys qualifying for the PGA Tour, playing from the tips. Okay. It was called this Q school, qualifying school.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you played halfway through the round. They were changing my grip. I had a blister on my finger when we finished. Okay. No lie.
You were probably so nervous. You were just choking the club to death, I'm sure.
But the fact of the matter is I got the job and da-da-da-da. And you know why? Because I had the right attitude. I overcame my fear. And I was 21 years old at the time. And, the rest is history. And it was a wonderful journey and experience around the world. And it was great. But overcoming fear and not letting it control me, but being true. Because if I was an asshole, or if I was screaming, or if I gave up, or if I had a bad attitude, I would not have had the opportunities that I did when they asked me to fly to, move to Florida and start this company for Jack. And so, fear, I think is a big challenge for a lot of people in this world. And I think for me, I was pretty good at overcoming it at a young age, but it's provided me the opportunity to do a lot of things. And my point is, a golf club is a widget. A buffer is a widget. Paint is a widget. That's all it is. We can do anything with ourselves and our life and our goals and our dreams, but those are all just widgets. It's all the other stuff that matters. So I guess that's the moral of my story.
I like that. I like the fear aspect. My personal coach and mentor told me early on when we were having some conversations about different things and, some of my personal loops that I go through. And he told me this thing that he does, which is a lot of people will say all the bad decisions I've ever made in my life have been as, under the influence of drugs and alcohol, right? Like that's if you, and he said every bad decision I've ever made has been under the influence of fear. And I really love the way that he put that, because if you base your decision and that's where worry comes in and anxiety and all of those things. If you are basing your decision making on fear, you're not making clear decisions. And we all do it. I'm not any better than anybody else. I have my own personal things that I kind of my personal loop is like, hey, are we making enough revenue this week? Do I have enough cash in the bank? If I need to order this product, and I think a lot of small businesses, cash flow is an easy one to be fearful about. Just because you got to buy product, you got to keep the lights on, you got to do all those things. But I always love the way that he said that, being under the influence of fear. And, part of what you gave with that acronym is this false evidence. I talked to a guy on the podcast yesterday that called, his name is Jordan Stupar, and he's very high-end sales trainer. Like he trains, HVAC, and he just has really good and he's like a king of closers. But we talked about on that podcast, as you change your mindset, as you get more honed in on your sales process, as you do different things, there is evidence in that shows you that you're making progress. So you can either see evidence that you suck at sales, or you can see evidence that you're really good at sales. And so we were talking about doing that. And so the fear aspect of it, I love the first two, which is false evidence, because you're essentially creating scenarios in your mind that don't even currently exist. And so you're afraid of something that is made up, right?
100%. And the thing is, I couldn't agree with your friend more, because if I have the right attitude, I'm going to think about the positives. I'm going to think about the things that were accomplishments. If I have 5 things and I have the wrong attitude, I'm going to have 5 wrong things, right? But if I can take the positive out of 1 or 2, that can actually transmortify, as Calvin and Hobbes used to say, into maybe 3 things, because these 2 can be related to this. And so if I have the right attitude and I always take what I can use and leave the rest, right? There's always something good. It's not like a religious thing or anything, but it's a faith thing. It's kind of like, I would always look up to the sky every day and I always kind of say thank you, right? To whatever that being is up there. And, I always find a blue spot in the sky and say thank you. And then when it was cloudy, I would be like, oh, well, gee, that's no good. I can't find a blue spot in the sky to say thank you. That's no good. But then when I realized many years later, it was only a few years ago, I realized, wait a minute, if I have a little bit of faith, I have to remember that beyond those gray clouds is blue sky.
Right.
So it's taking something good out of the bad that says, wait a minute, you know what? It's going to be okay. And if I have a little bit of faith, it's going to be okay.
This episode is brought to you by Detailer's Roadmap. Hey, spoiler alert, that's us. We all know you need a kick-ass website in order to be successful with your business. The good news is at Detailer's Roadmap, kick-ass websites. That's kind of what we do. With the latest performance, designs, and SEO strategies, Detailer's Roadmap is your one-stop shop to be successful on the web. And don't forget, we have the best support team in the industry. Whether you're an existing partner looking to improve your lead generation or you need a brand new website, Detailer's Roadmap is here to help you be successful on the web. So go to detailersroadmap.com/success and get started today. That's detailersroadmap.com/success.
So whether you say cash flow, well, if my cash flow this month is not good, Dr. ColorChip, this month our cash flow is down. You know why? It's January. Ain't nobody painting chips on their cars in January. So we know from doing this for 23 years that it's the ebbs and flows. In the golf business, we used to joke, come along November, December, we would joke and say, let's go fishing. Because nobody playing golf up in Ohio. So anyways, the point is if I have the right attitude, that false evidence, forget it. There is no false evidence. Think of the positive evidence or the piece of the puzzle that can keep me going. So,
yeah, it's absolutely that positive mindset. And, I talk about it all the time, but it's such an important aspect of it. I'm interested in, and I want to talk about we will do a little selling because I want to talk about Dr. ColorChip for sure and ancillary income and all that stuff. But I want to ask something that I think is a weak point in the detailing industry, which is this idea of brand. You basically describe your time at Nicholas of like building a brand, right? Like you had to build this retail side of this brand, and he was the brand, but like the whole Golden Bear thing was kind of a nickname, but then it turned into his brand and all of that. What do you see in talking to detailers that they're doing right with brand and doing wrong with brand? And kind of give me the idea on what how important is that in that small, obviously as a global brand, it's very important, but even as a small brand, like how does that work?
Well, yeah, a brand is a name. A brand is what people remember. A brand is what, gives equity. At the end of the day, nobody does anything forever. And if I have if there's value in my brand and there's been equity created when I have an exit strategy, if I have a more valuable brand, then I can make more money when I sell the company. Simple as that. And so, brand is equity, brand is value. Brand is big. And a person can be a brand. Jack Nicklaus, he was a brand. But for detailers, it's hard because it's what do you want to be, I think is the first thing. What does somebody want to be? Not everybody wants to be a brand. Not everybody wants, not everybody is that hungry or and I don't want to say hungry, not everybody is that capable, quite frankly.
Yeah.
Not everybody is that, will take the time to be educated, will take the time to invest, whether it's financial, emotional, time away from your family. There's a lot to it. And, Jack Nicklaus is a great example. Yeah, he became a worldwide brand. He happened to be the best golfer that's ever lived. Him and Tiger Woods. Tiger never beat Jack's records of major championships. But I know for a fact Jack had 5 children, and he was gone from those kids for many, many days at a time over the course of a year. And there was a huge sacrifice there. And I know Jack, it's always bothered him. So, what do we want in terms of a brand? A brand is wonderful because if you want to be more corporate, a corporation, then it might have more validity. But, what do detailers want? Do they want to just make a buck so they can survive? Do they want to build a company? Do they want to build a brand? And there's a lot to each one of those, and there's pros and cons to each of them.
Yeah, and I think that it's that the recognition and credibility is something that even a small shop can do really well. I made the mistake, and I think so many others do, that, I had Davis Auto Detailing, which is the dumbest name for your business. Don't name your company. If you've already done it and you don't need to rebrand, don't do it. But like, if you're just starting out, come up with a better name than whatever your name is, because to your point, if you do get hit by a truck, or if you just decide to sell or whatever, it has less value because it's attached to you, become part of the brand. Also, well, back in the day, we had to be concerned with where we showed up in the yellow pages. No one now has to deal with that. But I had a company that started with a Y back in the day, and I rebranded it to start with a B because I was higher up in the yellow pages.
Right.
No one has to deal with that. That's like old guy talk, but no one has to deal with that now. But when you're thinking about brand, really kind of honing in on that and making that recognition so that the customers really identify. I used to have a Jeep, and I had a guy take me and create a cartoon monkey out of me just because I thought it would be funny. And actually, that's what I used as my on the side of my vehicles, my detailing vehicles. So it had like a 5-foot tall monkey holding a buffer.
Awesome.
And people saw it all over the place, and people could read it. But that's part of the branding I'm kind of talking about, is like, how do people recognize you, and how important that is to build it.
Right. And that's one of the things I'll be talking about at Mobile Tech. And I'm doing like 2 classes at Mobile Tech. And one of them, I actually have some notes here, so I don't want too much of the cat out of the bag. But what I say is pretty consistent wherever I go. So I'm not,
right.
not losing anything here. But yes, and it says right here, it says guerrilla marketing.
There you go.
Guerrilla marketing, I love. I mean, Jack Nicklaus was a huge brand, a huge icon, right? But our little company, I mean, granted, we're a $35 million company, but still, we're a little company relative to Callaway, TaylorMade, and they were big companies, right? And so, how do you fight against, David and Goliath, right? So I got really into guerrilla marketing, and I would take banners, when there were demo days or events, and I would go literally half a mile away from the driving range, and I'd start putting flags in the ground, and these big flags that said Jack Nicklaus or whatever. People would drive in and they'd say, especially the competitors, like the sales guys from TaylorMade, right? They drive in and they go, "Oh, Pando's here again." But guerrilla marketing, making people think, thinking outside the box, ways to give awareness to who you are is huge. And your idea of your big monkey is a great thing. That's a brand. It's a logo. A logo is part of a brand, right? And so, at the end of the day, talking for detailers, I guess the most important thing for me is you could be whatever you want to be. You can be a brand. You can be a guy that just has his job and does his thing and has a good clientele and has a wonderful life. Remember the teeter-totter. Whatever makes your teeter-totter the right way is going to be the best thing for you. Some people have aspirations of having 20 detailers working for them, having a big company, making a brand, and that can be wonderful too. But don't get me wrong, that comes with a lot of headaches. The hardest thing we're ever going to do in life is manage people. And so, remember what we're biting into when we want to be this big. And, Jack Nicklaus's financial advisor told me one day, his name was George Fay. He's one of my all-time heroes. He always used to say, Tony, this company just doesn't need to be Callaway and TaylorMade. We don't need to be this giant company. If we stay at about 30, 35 million, whatever our number was, if we stay at this size, it's a wonderful annuity for our family, because we were bringing in a couple million or whatever, every year. And it's a great annuity, and it's a great little company, and it was a wonderful family company, right? So, I mean, it was really, really cool. And we didn't need to be Callaway and TaylorMade. And I'll put it this way. Towards the end of my tenure, I was there with Jack for over 20 years, but towards the end, I remember TaylorMade, they had the white driver, was a big deal, and all this marketing. And they did $1 billion in sales that year. It was the first time they went over $1 billion in sales. And we did 30, million, something like that, 30 to 32 million in sales. On $1 billion in sales, they lost $13 million. On our
Wow.
$31 million in sales, we made like, I think it was 3.8 or I don't know, whatever it was. But anyways, it don't matter how big you are. We're not here, as George Jack Stye said. Another thing was, we're not here to knock the barrel over and pick it up again. And we don't want to just knock the barrel over and pick it up. Well, cash is king. Another George isn't. We want to we're going to make money. So I mean, if you can make really good money and it's you by yourself or you and one or two other people, because you do such a great job and you develop a brand, if you will, of who you are. I agree with not having your name, but if you can develop that in a niche product, there's a lot of value in that. Doesn't have to be just having 10 people working for you and 15 trucks running around. So, I mean, we all have to sit back and decide what we want. And, you can be whatever you want.
Yeah. And that's, we've talked about it on the podcast a few times, which is, not every shop needs to do $1 million a year or 5 or 10 or whatever the number is. If you're happy, you can provide for your family and you love your life and you're making 10 grand a month and that pays the bills and everything's good. Be that. Like if you like it and enjoy it. I had a conversation with a guy the other day and he was like, man, I get up in the morning and I don't enjoy going to my shop. And he said, I know that I need to work on my attitude about it. And my answer was, maybe not. Maybe this is not the path that you want to do. Cause he's a guy that has other interests and other income and different things. I'm like, the way I always put it is, if you hate your life like that, you either need to do something different or do what you're doing in a different way. And so it's to your point. It's like, we don't, everybody has to figure out what works best for them. And I think in the detail industry, especially, and maybe in our society in general with the filter technology and all that stuff, we always have these aspirations we always adopt the aspirations of other people that we see. And I think it's important to have your own aspirations to say, this is what works for me and my family. People talk about retirement all the time and different things. And I'm like, I'm going to live to be 120. If I retired at 70, that's a lot of years of doing nothing, right? Like I'm never going to retire until I'm, physically forced to do that. But,
no,
but because that's the kind of life I want,
Yeah, no, 100%. I think you bring up a really good point. One of the most important that I've learned, is I don't want to look at people's Instagram and Facebook and how wonderful their lives are, because you never know how good or bad their life is by looking at a picture on your phone or on social media. I have to develop myself. I go for all these walks in the woods every day, and I love that because it gives me time to reflect and think and contemplate life and think about my podcast with Kevin Davis. But I'm not going to judge myself because I've been there. I've been with Jack on his jet. I've been, with I'm down in Palm Beach, Florida. Hello. I know a lot of those folks, and it doesn't matter how rich or poor you are. It matters who you are, number one, and it matters what I have on the inside, number two, and what makes me happy. And happiness isn't even the right word. I don't know if it's content. I don't know if it's serene, because happiness is, I've been reading this lately, happiness is just a state of mind in the moment. And happiness is not something that I strive to get to. It's so this is not happiness right here. This is not happiness. Happiness is all of this beyond. Happiness is, it's not just, I want to strive to be happy. If I make, $20,000 a month, I'll be happy. If I get that new car, I'll be happy. If I, do whatever, my neighbor has a new boat, I want a bigger boat and I'll be happy. Come on, man. If It's in here, and I have to develop my own sense of my own happiness, not the
Mm.
outside forces. When I see my friend, you know, he moved to Spain, and he's every picture he's so happy, and some people I know who are miserable, like your friend who not happy going to their job, are looking at those pictures going, man, I really should go to Spain, maybe. And maybe I want to live in Taos, New Mexico. Yeah, I don't know, but what makes me happy, and not letting outside forces, outside fake BS type stuff determine my happiness. I need to determine that, and I need to
Yeah.
figure it out.
Yeah, I told Michelle a week ago, I'm as content, and I use the word contentment because happiness is, kind of an up and down thing, but I'm more content now than I've ever been. And there's been a lot of internal work that I've done and different things that have happened in the last year. But
Yeah.
I'm determined to make my 50s my best decade. That's one of my goals, is like, this is going to be the best decade. Because a lot of people are like, well, my 20s were awesome and I did all these things. I'm like, well, my 20s were great, but that means my 50s can be even better.
Yeah.
But yeah, that contentment aspect is super important. I want to be, kind of running around on 50 minutes, which is awesome. I'm super excited to continue the conversation. I want to talk about ancillary revenue. Get into kind of some meat, some actually meat and potatoes of this thing. When I was 21, I got my first health club. I was running it was like a 50,000 square foot, $10 million health club when I was 21. And so one of the big things that we focused on was ancillary income. Because we have the membership income, but then ancillary income, which is massage, personal training, drinks, supplements, in that space. In the detailing space, it's, add-on services. It can be products that you offer, maintenance kits. If your main product is detailing, it might be tent. If your main product is PPF, it may be coatings. And so these are like ancillary things that essentially add on to whatever you're selling. Glass coatings, wheel coatings, that would be an ancillary service to a ceramic main paint coating. To me, and this is not a sales pitch for Dr. ColorChip, but it will sound like one. The paint chip repair and what Dr. ColorChip has is probably one of the easiest and highest ROI things that someone could add into their shop to make more money, because it takes very little time. You can charge through the nose for it. The initial and ongoing financial requirement is relatively low. Talk to me about the importance. Let's take a step back before we really dig into Dr. ColorChip, but let's talk about ancillary income as a concept, because this is your world now, right? For the last 13 years.
Oh my gosh, it's been my world for the last 30 years. I mean,
I guess that's true. Yeah.
Do you want to get a golf bag? You're buying this new Nicholas driver. Do you want to get a golf bag? We got these Nicholas golf bags that are amazing.
Yep.
Try this Nicholas golf. Oh my God, I love that golf. Well, we got a dozen of them over there. You want to buy? The old, my God, my favorite. And this, you want some French fries with that hamburger?
Yeah.
I mean, that's as old and oldie and a goodie, right? So I mean, ancillary income, I think is wonderful. It's how can you add on to your menu once you have a customer, a captured customer, a customer who likes you, believes in you, trusts you, loves you because you do such a good job for them. And I'm not saying this is a bad thing, but ideas that will help your customer, and obviously you're making money too. It's a win-win, right? So ancillary income are just different ways to add on revenue, to call it a ticket, call it a sale, call it whatever you want, but it's ways to add on. And I'm a big believer in not piling on. I'm a believer in adding on if you can. And ancillary income is a natural. And this was, Dan and I used to solve all the world's problems. I was working for Jack, and he had started ColorChip, and we would drink wine and solve the world's problems. And one of the things I realized with ColorChip is, wow, first of all, Dan was an amazing stand-up guy. Second of all, the product was top notch. So for me, it was really easy. I represented Jack Nicklaus and Nicklaus Golf Equipment, too, a great product and a great man. And here I am, having this opportunity with Dan, a great product and a great man. So it was very natural for me. But it was also, wow, ancillary income and recurring revenue, both of those. Dr. ColorChip has both of those. And, to your point, it is, I say this all the time, 8 out of 10 cars, and I've asked that people, and I can say this with confidence, 8 out of 10 cars have chips and scratches on them, the everyday driving cars. Something, whenever I ask it in a class, they're like 100%. I'm like, okay, whatever. But 8 out of 10 cars have chips and scratches. So that means 80% of your customers could use something like Dr. ColorChip. But the best part is 7 out of those 8 people are either afraid to do it, don't know how to do it, or they had a bad experience with a paint pen, right? So Dr. ColorChip, to your point, is a very natural thing that you can help your customer. You can ease their fear, and you can do a repair that they don't want to do. And if they went to a body shop to fix chips on a car, spray a panels, and it costs $800, $1,000, you can do it for $150 in under 10 minutes. So yeah, are you making money? Sure. Is it good money? Yeah, pretty good money. Is your customer happy and satisfied and content? 100%. So you can help 7 out of 10 customers very easily with this add-on incremental revenue. And the best part is the recurring. Because once you fix those chips and they're happy as a clam and they're driving down the road, a month later, what happens? Ding, they get another chip. Yeah. So no, ancillary income and recurring revenue are like the ways to grow a business, to grow a brand, and so like I was saying a minute ago, 8 out of 10 cars need it. 7 out of 8 people that have that issue with stone chips and scratches are afraid to do it, don't know how to do it. So you have a way to make money. And like you were saying, you can make really good money with it while helping your customers. And if I can add this, for me and you, Kevin, the way we think, I've talked to you enough to know, one of the things that I love with what Dr. ColorChip is not just the ancillary income or the recurring revenue, it's the customer service. Because I tell people, if you're doing a big job, and I don't know what a big job is, if it's 500 or 5,000, doesn't matter. Think in your mind of a big job that you're doing on somebody's vehicle, and you notice that they have 5 or 6 stone chips. And if you have the ability to fix those chips for that person, and say you have one of our commercial systems or whatnot, and you can fix those, you say, tell you what, Mr. Jones, I noticed you got those 5 or 6 stone chips. I'm going to fix them for free. Or better yet, you don't even tell them. You just fix them as part of your process, because to fix those 6 chips takes you less than 10 minutes. And remember, 7 out of 8 people are afraid to do it, don't know how to do it, or had a bad experience with the Pope. And you have just done it for them for free, whether you tell them, beforehand or you tell them after. What are you doing? You're creating goodwill with your customer, and they're going to love you forever. And they're going to tell their friends about you, and they are going to give you more ancillary recurring revenue and help you build your company. So I think even giving it away for free at times can be wonderful.
Can you walk through the numbers for me? Because I am interested in like what, like, it's funny because you talked about 32 million with Nicklaus and 3.2. I'm like, 10% margin sounds low. But what kind, I'm assuming the margin on Dr. ColorChip services would be much higher than 10%. But what, like, walk me through some of the numbers with that. It's just so we can put things down. And if give me the 101 on how it works, by the way, that's if people have never heard about it, let's get that first. It's basically
right.
Wipe on, wipe off, right? Karate Kid stuff.
The shortest version, 100%. We call it dab smear blend. Basically, you have a car. We have 2 sides to our business. We have the single color retail kits. So depending on, if you have a 2019 Toyota Tacoma and it's white, the paint color code is 040 white. You would get the 040 white in our Dr. ColorChip box. I have one here. This is kind of this is kind of a different one, but you get a box, and in this box is the kit with all the items you need to fix those 5 or 6 stone chips, and it's made according to your vehicle paint color. And it's very easy. You down it next to the chip, smear it across the chip, let it dry, use our blending solution, the Select, and you level that down so you have a nice level repair. No more paint blobs, right? And then you take a microfiber towel, buff. That's the wax off part of the wax on, wax off, and you're done. And you can fix 5 or 6 chips very quickly and have a very nice repair. Then we have the commercial side of the business, which is the same process. The only difference is that the commercial side is a big box with a whole range of color library, if you will, of colors, from light to dark, whether it's red, white, silver, or blue, whatever. And it's the same process. The only difference is it's a match by eye system, because in reality, say our 100 color system is our most popular. That's 100 shades of different colors. Your eye can't differentiate really any more than that, especially if you're fixing a tiny little chip or a scratch. So the match by eye system, you have a red car comes in. I don't care if it's a Ford or a Chevy or Toyota. It's a red car, dark red. You go with your box, you grab 1 or 2 of the dark reds, hold it up. Okay, that's a match. There you go. Then you do the process. It takes, I say the average repair time is 15 minutes. All right. Many cars that have 5 or 6 chips are going to take you less. They're going to take you 7 minutes, right? Some cars that have what we call road rash, we trademarked that term years and years ago. We have a whole heavily peppered hood. Those people up in that northern mountain states, they get that road rash.
Us. But right, yeah.
But anyways, bottom line is that might take you 30 minutes, but you're going to charge accordingly. You're going to, I have people, and I was wrong here because I was too scared. I was fearful back in the day. And I would say, well, you should charge about $99 for, as a starting point on a panel. Because I didn't want people, I was afraid I was going to be too high. But what I had an open mind and listening to people was, we have people that they have a menu of their offerings, and on it says paint chip repair starting at $199. And what they do is they say, oh, Mr. Jones, I noticed that you've got 5 or 6 stone chips on that panel. Tell you what, I know it says $199. I'll ship them for $120. Oh, wow, you're giving me a deal. That's great. And I'm afraid to do it anyways. Do it. 7 minutes work, $120. But if they've got a whole road rash channel and it's $199, maybe you say, you know what, I'll do it for $179. Or maybe you say $199, whatever. But you have a lot of ways to skin the cat, so to speak. So, the margins are very, very good. And you buy a system from us, you're going to spend, say, $3 to $4 grand. You spend that one time. You're then considered a commercial user. Anything you buy from us moving forward, you pay wholesale for. A bottle of paint, one of the bottles of paint will do 40 cars times, let's just say $100. That's 4,000. There's a lot of revenue in that bottle of paint. So, there's 80 bottles on that. So, there's a lot of revenue in the system that you spend a little bit for. You cannot find anywhere else that I know of, at least in the industry, that you can have an ancillary recurring revenue stream for such a low investment. It's a business in a box, if that makes sense. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. Do you have to worry about shelf life and stuff on these bottles once they're open? Like, is that a concern?
Yeah, it's only good for about a month. The paint's good for about a month, but no. No. The paint, it's a good question. I just had a commercial user in Hawaii yesterday. He was like, oh, my paint, he had this gold paint. He doesn't use very often, and it went bad, he said. And the point is this, is for our DIY kits or even the regular paint, we say the shelf life is about 12 or 13 months. However, if you take care of your paint, and you're shaking, it's got BBs in there. You take care of your paints, they're good for 3 years. Most people say they're good for longer, but I say 3 years with confidence. But the paint's good for at least 3 years. So And the point is, what I found when I wrote this business plan and this business model with Dan, what I never really anticipated, and here we're in it for 14, 15 years now, um, uh, is the number of people that have bought what I call an additional system. So you buy that first system, even if you get it at Global Tech, where we offer probably the best pricing of the year, you buy it there. The next system you buy, and 4 or 5 years down the road, you're paying half that wholesale, right? The point is well, the paint lasts a long time, but I was really blown away by how many people buy an additional system. What does that tell me? That tells me that people use it, people like it,
Yeah.
that it works. And I'm like, wow, I was really, really blown away by the number. We sell as many additional systems now, now that we're way into it, as we do new systems. So that's super, super cool. And it's very rewarding. So, it's a very, very high margin product, and it's a business in a box that, you can really use. I mean, and PDR folks, detailers, recon shops, fixed site, mobile, our stuff fits in all of that. And so it is really good stuff, and we're a really good company. And that's the fun part.
Is there a process in which, okay, so I'm thinking about adding this system. I just buy this business in a box. Do I need training? Everybody needs certifications and all of that stuff, right? Like, I assume I've seen you do it probably 1,000 times watching you in the booth. Like it's pretty easy to do. So there's not really a high learning curve or anything like that. So it should be relatively easy to implement, correct?
I came from the golf industry, and I did not know anything to touch up all that. Remember, I was saying that earlier, right? And I'm a pro. Yeah, granted, I've been doing it a long time now, but you have to remember, we sell over 10,000 of these DIY kits every month to people that have no clue what they're doing. We've been doing it for 23, 24 years, whatever it is now. And we have a very high percentage of our people are recurring customers. They come back, every year, every 2 years, whatever it is. I mean, we got a couple 100,000 people at least in our database. So, I mean, it's that easy to do. That's the process. And so, yes, to answer your question, it's easy to do. Your learning curve is very, very light. But when you do buy a commercial system from us, we provide you all of the training that you need, which we provide in marketing and safety data sheets. Some of the people we do business with, we're very compliant in how we do business. And at the end of the day, we want to make sure you're trained properly, that you have all the marketing tools, all the arrows in your quiver, I like to say, and all the safety data sheets to be compliant with your customers. But the training, I call it YouTube University. Just go to
Yeah.
YouTube and put in Dr. ColorChip. You do dozens, if not hundreds of videos. It's based on a do-it-yourself process. But one of the things I really started highlighting lately is the high number. I think a lot of commercial users. We have a lot of commercial users that are super diehard with us, and many of them come to our working booths with us and also. But they have agreed to be on lists of people that you can call or see or Zoom with for tips and tricks. These are people that are doing it every day, all day. So it's all about training. It's all about questions, because you will always have, does it work on this light strengths, or, what do I do when it's, a vertical surface, little things like that. I'm always here to answer those questions first and foremost. But I'm a big believer that, Kevin, you talking, from your experience and where you come from, you'd much rather talk to one of your peers than you would somebody from a company. You know what I mean? Because
Right. Yeah.
there's a little bit more trust there. It's the soft third party endorsement, right? And
Yeah.
so, I've got dozens. I've got a whole list that I send out to people, and you can contact them. So we really want to support you on the training and the marketing, and I give you all the before expression. So you have all it's paid with your business in a box and a very minimal investment to go have success. And it's been pretty successful.
I love it. Yeah. And I mean, I've seen the system multiple times. I think it's a great, and I mean, you cannot get easier to make money than, because even, and obviously I worked for ceramic coating companies and all that stuff. I mean, it's pretty easy to add. It's pretty low. Dude, even if you started out with a few DIY kits to give it a shot and see whether or not you can sell it and not throw out $3 or $4 grand at first, I think you'll find that it's a great addition to the business. And, every little bit helps. Even if you made an extra grand a month from doing, and hopefully you'll make more than that. But even if you made an extra grand a month in your business, I mean, I'd like an extra grand, that's pretty easy to do.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm going to ask a very cliche. Go ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna say, for your listeners, if they want to, they can. And I don't know where else you can put this, but my email address is tonytony@drcolorchip.com. And if you mention Kevin Davis in this podcast, send me an email. Heck, you can call me or text me 561-373-6969. Send me a text. And just say Kevin Davis. If you mention this podcast, I'll be happy to maybe work a really good deal with you. I'll order 2 kits just to try out. You have a kit for your car or something like that. I can put you on pretty good friends and family. And work with you, Kevin, and grateful for you that they've listened this long. So yeah, I'd be more than happy to help send out a kit to people just so they can try.
I love it. I started to say I'm going to ask a cliche question. Let's do a quick, last statement for this podcast. What's and because we have a ton of these, right? But what would you tell yourself as an early person in business that now that you wish you had known when you were, let's not say 21 because you still had no idea what the hell you're doing. So let's give you a little credit, say 25. You're kind of like year 4, year 5, and Nicholas. What would that sound like?
I don't know. Say the question again because you broke up for a second. What was it?
All right. So if you're going to have, what would one piece of advice to give your 25-year-old self working with Nicholas from a business and life standpoint? Like, like an elevator pitch for your life. Difference maker. He's holding up a cup. Okay, I'm going to read this. Hold that for a second. He's holding up a cup that says difference maker, dedicated individual, make a big impact with just a few small action and words, someone who makes a difference in the lives of others.
That's it.
That's it.
I mean,
I love it. Make a difference.
Tony Pando.
Be a difference maker.
Be a difference maker. Be a person that is dedicated to individuals. Be a dedicated individual who is thinking about the lives of others, thinking about the goodness. And if I can help make a difference, I had a pretty good consciousness of that back then, but I am more than aware of it today, and more than aware of my mortality, and more than aware of what reality is, and that I'm not going to be fearful, that I'm going to be great. Because I love being grateful and I love embracing life, and always be a difference maker. And that's just something I can't emphasize enough.
I love it, Tony. So they go. You gave your information already. Repeat those 2 things, Tony at Dr. ColorChip, drcolorchip.com for his email address. 561.
Yep.
What?
Yep. Yes, sir. Yes. Yep. Tony, TONY at drcolorchip.com. And you can call me or text me 561-373-9960. It's my phone number. We will be at Mobile Tech. I'm doing 2 classes at Mobile Tech. I'm doing a business marketing track for MTE, and I'm also doing an IDA class on paint scratch repair. The business track for MTE is going to be with a PDR friend of mine named Ryan Shep. We did it last year. It was really successful. So we're going to be talking to a lot of PDR people there. So PDR people, detailers, we'll see you in a few weeks. Kevin, I'm sure I'll see you in a few weeks. And
you will definitely see me. I appreciate you. And we'll have another great conversation at MTE, I'm sure.
I know.
All right, awesome, brother.
It's always a pleasure.
Head over to detailersroadmap.com and get your one-stop success solution today.